Lots of recruiting updates for Indiana basketball and, yes, Indiana football.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, thank you so much for being here. Shout out to all of my everydayers, those of you that truly make this your first listen or your first watch every single day. I see you, I hear you, and I really, really do appreciate you. Tons of recruiting updates on the show today. Basketball, maybe not so good. Football, though, really, really good. And then the entire quarterback situation for Indiana football. Rourke officially out this weekend, but good comments from Curt Cignetti. Seems to have some confidence in what Tayven Jackson can do this weekend. Let's start with Indiana basketball recruiting, okay? Because we have slowly seen the list, right? We've slowly seen the list dwindle down of players that Indiana's going after, players that Indiana has a chance for, and it's been a slow, painful process, I think, is the best way to describe it, because you've just seen time and time and time again, oh, we're in it for this player. Oh, we're in the top 5. Oh, we made the top 3. All right, well, never mind. He went somewhere else. That just seems to be how this process has gone. Jalen Harrelson was in there. Malachi Marino was in there. Remember the name Winters Grady? You remember that guy? Yeah, the one that all of a sudden jumped on the scene and Indiana was all of a sudden in the arms race here and keeping up with everybody else around the country. And yeah, now he's going to Michigan, which seemed to be moving really, really fast for some reason. Apparently he liked the Dusty May system, which a lot of people do. Dusty May's a heck of a coach, and I think he's going to make Michigan really, really good. I think this year they're going to be really good. Same thing with Ohio State, man. I think those two teams are very underrated in the Big Ten this season. But yeah, Winters Grady all of a sudden commits to Michigan a few days ago. So take that one off the list, right? Still waiting on Braylon Mullins. That commitment coming tomorrow seems to be down to Indiana and UConn. North Carolina supposedly in there too, but I just don't think so. And I've told you, I think UConn is the one that Indiana's got to take over, the one that has the lead by quite a bit, I think. And so you start thinking about some other names that are out there, right, that we've talked about. How about Bryson Tiller? What happened to him? Well, he's supposed to be doing something in November, right, before signing day in November. And there are a couple of big programs. Georgia Tech is in there. Auburn is in there with Bruce Pearl. I think Indiana's still alive here, though, right? I think Indiana still has a chance with Bryson Tiller. And then the other one I've seen a lot of you asking about in the YouTube comments is Michael Brown. He's not doing anything this fall or this winter. He's waiting until next spring to make his decision. So if there is a bright side to that, right, if there is a bright side, it's okay. You still have time to make your case. You still have time, if you're Indiana, to make your case and sell Michael Brown Jr. on why he can be successful here. And think about it this way too, Hoosier fans. Look at what Indiana is about to put on the floor in terms of guard play this year. Look at what they're putting out there. They're putting out Miles Rice and Cannon Carlisle rather than whatever we tried to throw out there last year, the combination of Johnson and Cups and Leo and Galloway. Like, it's going to be a much improved guard room this season. And Michael Brown and other guards like him can look at that and say, oh, I do want to be a part of that. They are changing the way they play. Remember that whole conversation? Remember how we keep talking about how Mike Woodson's telling everybody he's going to change the offense and the style of play and the system and all that jazz? Does that sound familiar? Good, because it's been all over the place. that is the bright side of a guy like Brown, who is not doing anything until next year. He has a chance to see it. And I respect it. I do. I mean, good for you, man. You want to see what's going on. You want to have all the information before you make a decision. And I totally understand. And I think, too, a benefit of that, getting back to the conversation of high school recruiting versus portal recruiting, that does give you an opportunity to have something on film for those players you do eventually go after in the transfer portal. Film on them, of course, but they will have film on you as well. Because if the trend continues like it's going in the high school recruiting cycle, we're going to swing and miss on just about everybody. If it keeps going the way it's going, I don't think that's the case just yet. I do think we can still land a couple of big names, but the trend is not going in the right direction. Something has to derail this train to make that happen. But as I was saying, with the transfer portal that'll be coming up next spring, right, once the basketball season is not completely over because the NCAA screwed all the dates up again. But next spring, you will have players that you are going after that you can show them on film. Hey, this is what we are doing. This is what we did. We're also going to keep doing it. We're going to get better, and we need you to help us in that category or in this facet, whatever the case may be. You see what I'm saying here? So for those of you Indiana fans that have said, you know what, to heck with high school recruiting, we don't need it. Let's just live in the transfer portal. I get it. I totally understand where you're coming from. And if Mike Woodson and Indiana do what they say they're going to do, and they're going to change a lot of the offense and change the style of play and get people involved and be a high-scoring, high-flying, exciting team to watch, then that portal success is going to be very, very good. It's going to be very good because players who I think what we're doing is going to get those mid-level, mid-major players that are really, really good that took that next step from their sophomore to their junior season, and now they're ready for Power 4 basketball, then you can go find them. And I think that's what Indiana's going to do. Heck, we went and got four, is that right? 4 Power 4 players out of the portal this season that I think took a step forward and will continue to take steps forward and filled this roster. So all in all here, while the high school recruiting for basketball may not be going the way we want it to, there are upsides to this. I still think high school recruiting is important. Don't get me wrong. I've told you that several times on this program. My everydayers, you know that. But if you're going to swing and miss, you better have a backup plan. And thankfully, you do have the transfer portal where if you do the things you say you're going to do, you should have success there once again, whether it be with the bigs, the forwards, or the guards. If Indiana swings and misses on their high school recruits, you have to show something to the transfer portal guys. And if you do, I think you're going to be okay. If you don't, and you have one bad cycle in the transfer portal, everything will go wrong. All right, coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, speaking of recruiting, how about some football recruiting? That's right. It was one of the biggest recruiting weekends ever this past weekend when Indiana beat down Nebraska. We'll tell you about it coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Roy. Hey, Hoosiers fans, it's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we've pulled over $20,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring all the funds go to the specific player that you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver on the content, you get your money back. And this week, my Roy Player of the Week is Indiana wide receiver Miles Cross. I just pitched in $100, and I'd love for you to join me. Even just $10 makes a difference. Let's show Miles Cross, who had 7 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown on Saturday to help Indiana beat Nebraska. Let's show him a little bit of love and keep him connected to our school. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets your team up for success. Plus, don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets to a game in November. Just download Roy, create an account, and enter the referral code Locked On, and you're entered. If you're already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered into the contest automatically. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy_return on you for more info. Roy, support the players, change the game. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here again, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And if you haven't done so already, please do a couple of things to help support this show that is free to you every single day, Monday through Friday. On the YouTube side, like the video, gets it out there, shares it across the world. Also, comment down below your thoughts on Indiana basketball recruiting to this point. Are you concerned? Are you worried? Do you just not care anymore? Are you just ready for the season to start? Let me know in the YouTube comments, plus your excitement on the football recruiting side of things as well. And then be sure, if you are not already, subscribe to the channel. We continue to grow. We're over 3,200 subscribers now on the YouTube channel and making our way to 3,300. So be sure you're a part of that. I don't want you to miss out on all the great content that we have going on for you on the Locked On Hoosiers YouTube channel. And then for those of you that are on audio, be sure you're following us and have your notifications turned on so you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Well, I know we talk a lot of Indiana basketball recruiting, but man, this past weekend for football was unbelievable. Going into it, it was said that this could be one of the biggest weekends recruiting ever for Indiana football. And I think that's the case. They were expecting 80-plus recruits this weekend. And I think a heavy number of those ended up showing up to this Indiana football game. A, it was a sellout. B, you had big noon kickoff there. And all of the hype was going on between homecoming, Hoosier hysteria. You had the football game. I mean, it was a perfect recruiting weekend if you wanted to come check out the Indiana football program. And I don't know the exact number on this. Somebody probably does. I don't. But the amount of these kids that were probably here for the very first time was probably remarkable. Because I want you to think about this. Indiana had visitors from 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029. Yes, 2029. Okay. They had kids who are in middle school show up and visit and watch Indiana football. Think about how crazy that is for a second. Has a middle schooler ever been to Indiana on a visit? That's not even a thing. And it happened here in Bloomington this past weekend. 2025 all the way to 2029. That's the impact that Curt Cignetti has made in just 7 games at Indiana, where people who had no idea Indiana football even existed, they didn't even know we had a football program, they've all of a sudden said, I want to go check that out. That's a pretty cool place. They're a top 15 team. They're flirting with the top 10. There's people predicting them to make it to the college football playoff. Maybe I want to go check that out. Let's go see. Let's go see why not? Why not go see what Indiana's about? That's where all the hype is. That's where all the TV coverage is. We may as well go see what it's about. And then that's the job of Curt Cignetti and this staff to wow them when they get here. Now, it's a huge combination of official visits, unofficial visits, just showing up, seeing what it's about, right? You're going to have to gain traction with a lot of these. And I'm sure, I want you to think about this. I'm sure this is extremely overwhelming to this Indiana recruiting staff, the football staff in general, because you still are in the middle of your season where you are 7-0. And now you're having to deal with your starting quarterback being injured, which we're going to talk about in the final segment on the show today. And now you have this influx, this huge influx of recruits that are now interested in your program, just like that, all of a sudden, right? And probably over 50% of them were not interested a few weeks ago or at the start of the season. Like, that's a lot of names and a lot of faces and a lot of different actions you have to be taking in a very short amount of time. And I'm glad that I'm not a part of that. It sounds like it would be fun, but it also sounds like it'd be miserable because, man, that's a lot to deal with. Now, they make a lot of money and they're really good at what they do, so I'm not saying, oh, feel bad for these guys. I'm just saying, put yourself in their shoes for a second and think about just how much popularity they've gained in the past, 2 months? Yeah, this is October, right? Almost November. In the past 2.5 months. The attention, the coverage, the want of Indiana football is higher than it's ever been in the history of its existence right now. Right now. And that carries in to high school football recruiting. And I mean, you're telling me that you're hosting 70, 80, 90 recruits on campus for an Indiana football game that kicked off at noon on a Saturday afternoon? That's big time stuff, man. And it helps when, you win ball games and you win convincingly and you dominate, beat down, destroy Nebraska and embarrass them inside your own stadium and send them packing back to Lincoln. Like, you do that and recruits remember that. They remember that. It's funny because I've talked to a bunch of recruiting people during my time, and a lot of them, I've asked them straight up. I said, look, tell me this. When a recruit shows up to a visit, I don't care where it is or what it's about. In terms of football, how much does winning on that particular day actually influence a recruit? And I've gotten different answers, but the one that seems to be the most common is most of the time it doesn't matter unless it's a recurring thing, right? You show up for 3 visits and they've lost all 3 times. That's kind of heartbreaking. That may have an impact. But on any given Saturday, losing the football game on your visit isn't the biggest deal, because then you can say, hey, we need you, right? We could have won this with you, whatever. Indiana doesn't have that problem right now. Indiana's winning every game they play. And so every time recruits show up, heck, even when they turn on the TV, if Indiana's on the road, which I know hasn't happened a whole lot this year, but every time they turn us on, we're winning football games. We're dominating. We're doing exactly what we're supposed to do. And now they're starting to see that Indiana logo float around in different conversations, as in a college football playoff. That is awesome in terms of what we need for a positive impact on recruiting. Because, man, let's just be real. Indiana football recruiting was terrible. It was bad. Nobody wanted to come here. Nobody wanted to be a part of this. But now you've shown why it's a good thing to come here, why transfer portal players want to be here, why high school recruits want to be here, why everybody wants to be here. And starting out 7-0 with a chance to be greater than that is such a big impact for what this team and what this program can do moving forward. And there was a big question, right? There was a big question on if Julian Lewis was going to be here. He was supposed to be. He was supposed to be here this weekend. The quarterback recruit, the USC commit that everybody's been talking about, that Indiana's been after for quite some time. The reports were that he did not make the trip. So keep that in mind. We'll see where that goes from here. But he was not here this weekend. Good news is there's a lot of other guys that were here this weekend, and they got to see a really good football game. They got to see a really good result, and hopefully they want to come back. Hopefully they've added Indiana to their legit list, and they're like, man, that's a place I could see myself playing football. The fans are great. The facilities are great and getting better, and Coach Sig is the real deal. Huge recruiting weekend for Indiana football, and I can't wait to keep talking about this and get more excited as we go, because I think things are really going to ramp up in terms of football recruiting for the Indiana Hoosiers. Well, coming up in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, we're going to talk about that quarterback position because Kurtis Rourke is out. Tayven Jackson is in. Are you confident that he can help the Hoosiers win some more games while Kurtis Rourke gets that thumb figured out? We'll talk about it in our final segment coming up on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game. Could have done that last night during Chargers-Cardinals, which ended up being a pretty good game, or could have been during Ravens-Bucks, where they scored a ton of points. Maybe you thought that was going to happen. Maybe you thought Derrick Henry was going to score, and eventually he did. Wasn't a rush, but he got it on the receiving end, right? You can check out latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. It's all at FanDuel.com. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So go to FanDuel.com right now. You'll have $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you for being here and supporting this show, supporting me, and hopefully you are enjoying this and adding this to your rotation and truly making it your first listen or your first watch every single day. Couple of other shows that you need to add to your rotation: Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton, and Locked On Big Ten with Craig Sheeman. They all have an impact, and they all talk about Indiana, especially right now. Let me tell you what. So be sure that you add those shows into your rotation. That's 2 hours of your workday just gone. It's put it on the computer, listen, watch, and the 2 hours of your day is already done just like that. So check out those shows. Tell them that I sent you from Locked On Hoosiers. I promise you will enjoy what they have and all the content that they're producing. It's just on par with what we do here at Locked On. So check out those shows: college basketball, college football, and the Big Ten, all on the Locked On Podcast Network. So a little bit of concern, right, for the Indiana football team in terms of the quarterback situation, right? We told you this yesterday. It's now officially official, as everybody has announced it or reported on it, whatever. Kurtis Rourke, Indiana starting quarterback, Heisman hopeful quarterback, and I will use that term until it's no longer true, is out for some amount of time. We don't really know how long, right? It's sort of a wait and see type of game with the thumb injury that he's got going on. What we do know is he is not going to play this weekend against Washington. And I know that's concerning. I know that is scary. I know that it could be a little worrisome that you have a quarterback who's playing extremely well and all of a sudden he is no longer playing right now. And the team was really playing well around him too. And I think they were rallying with him, and he was leading them to, and he did lead them to the 7-0 start. But here's the good news. He's not out for the year. He's just out for the foreseeable future. The other good news is Tayven Jackson is the guy that's going to step in. And the limited time, I say limited, he played quite a bit in the second half on Saturday. The time that we saw him against Nebraska, Tayven Jackson, that is, he played really good. He did exactly what he was supposed to do, and he executed the offense. He scored twice and didn't turn the football over. And so I think those are all things that we can build on here and say, well, as much as it sucks to not have Kurtis Rourke, I think we should have some confidence in Tayven Jackson. And that's exactly what Coach Cignetti said yesterday in his weekly press conference. Quote, "We have 100% confidence, and the team has 100% confidence," Cignetti says. I have confidence. The staff has confidence in Tayven Jackson. I thought he played really well in the second half. And he goes on to say, we always talk about the next man up. Everybody's here for a reason, right? He says, in this sport, you're going to have injuries at every single position. It's a lot different when you're the starter, right? And I think that's all you need to hear. You, Indiana fans, if you are nervous, if you're worried about Tayven Jackson, or maybe not even about Tayven Jackson, it's just the concern of not having Kurtis Rourke. I think that gets blended together quite a lot, where I don't think anybody's like, oh no, Tayven Jackson, oh no, we're doomed. Oh, season's over. I don't think anybody's saying that, but I do think it's a legitimate feeling to say, man, we're really going to miss Kurtis Rourke. He was playing extremely well at a high level. This team was rolling with him on offense, and now that could change. That is okay. That is a legitimate fear and feeling that you can have. But I've yet to see one person so far in the last couple of days since Saturday say, Tayven Jackson's terrible. We're doomed. This is not going to work out. There it goes. Season's over. I haven't seen anybody say that. And the fact that Curt Cignetti, which I know he's the coach, he's supposed to say things like this, but it was without hesitation. He said, yeah, we got confidence in him. We're good. Team has confidence. Coaching staff has confidence. I have confidence. We're good. Next man up. Let's go. Let's roll. That's pretty much all you need to hear. That's the confidence booster. That's the reassurance that I needed. And hopefully that's what you needed too. And I've seen a lot of you talking how Indiana has a good chance to still win some football games, especially with it being Washington and Michigan State your next couple of games. Tayven Jackson is good enough with the team around him offensively and defensively. I think he's good enough to get you those wins. But as I said yesterday, and I will say this again, Rourke needs to be back for Michigan. He needs to be back for Ohio State, and he needs to be back for Purdue. Yes, for Purdue. I mean that. And if he gets back for those, I think we're good. But in terms of Tayven Jackson, I think he got all what he needed to. Hopefully that's the confidence boost he needed to from Cignetti to say publicly, yeah, he's our guy. We're good. No worries here. We're going to keep rolling, whether it's him, whether it's Rourke, whether it's Cherry, whether it's me. Doesn't matter. We continue on. Next play mentality, and the days go on. And I'm excited to see what he does. Hopefully the moment's not too big for him. I'm glad we have Washington at home this weekend before we have to go to East Lansing. Hopefully that gets him settled in. And I saw a lot of you talking about this as well. He got to play most of the second half, which is really good. This is not him coming in just straight cold and being like, all right, well, let's see what he's got. We know what he's got. Tayven Jackson's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. He's going to be good enough. And hopefully he plays really well. I'm excited to see what he can do this coming weekend against Washington. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much for being here again and being an everydayer, supporting this show. I'm having so much fun, and I hope that you are as well, and making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. If you're on YouTube, be sure, like the video, comment down below your thoughts on Tayven Jackson. Are you happy? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you worried? Tell me how you're feeling about the quarterback room right now. And then be sure, if you have not already, hit that subscribe button. It takes 1 click, 2 seconds, all it takes, and you become an everydayer just like that. So be sure you do that for me. If you're on the audio side, be sure that you are following us over there, have your notifications turned on. I don't care if it's Spotify, Apple, Amazon, whatever platform you're on. Be sure you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. We are back tomorrow with possibly good news, possibly bad news. We got a lot of content coming out for you this week. So be sure you don't miss it right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Back tomorrow. So until then, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.